Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hyperfixation, the podcast, your weekly deep dive into the niche and the eccentric. This week, we're talking Spider-Man. Spider-Man is about to hit cinemas, about to swing in. We were going to do an episode on the Odyssey, but we're holding off a little bit on that, just for the moment. But we will do the Odyssey, I promise. But for the moment, we're going to talk Spider-Man. We're going to do a bit of a retrospective. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and who isn't? Spider-Man is, I'm pretty sure, was voted the most popular superhero of all time. It's no secret, everyone loves Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I've always loved Spider-Man. And what we're going to do today is talk through the films. We're going to rank all of the films. Spoiler alert. I love Spider-Man. I've always loved Spider-Man. I grew up in the Sam Raimi era. And so obviously, as you know, anyone of that generation was really sort of captivated by Spider-Man. And what appeals to most people about him is that he is an everyman. As a superhero, he struggles. All of his main problems are everyday stuff. He can't adult. And that's really relatable, like as a teenager, and then during, when he's a young adult, and then when he's a bit older, his struggles are all, normal person stuff. It's, it's relationships, it's not being able to afford rent, it's being late with his homework. It's all stuff that's really universally sort of relatable in our Western world, and that is juxtaposed with his amazing abilities, fantastic capers, an amazing rogues gallery that rivaled Batman's in terms of bad guys. And I feel like in any sort of serial, you're only sort of as good as your bad guys in a lot of ways. I would say the same about Batman. I would say the same about Doctor Who. Anything like that is like, you need, with a recurring hero, you need good bad guys, and Spider-Man has them in bucket loads. So we'll talk a bit about Spider-Man, and we'll talk about each film and sort of what it does differently from the previous one, where it ranks, why it ranks as such. Later on in the podcast, I'm very keen to do some retro games. Now, I looked for some Spider-Man stuff, and I do have the Lego Daily Bugle set, but it's disassembled at the moment. And I actually am saving it for another podcast episode, a rebuild of it. And I don't really have other Spider-Man merch with me. So I've got the games. These are on the desk in front of me. These are the PlayStation games, the Insomniac ones. But I want to do some retro ones. I'd be really keen to do some old school Spidey. Some of the games I grew up with, like Ultimate Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2000. There's a couple that I haven't played that I'd be keen to. I think it's called Shattered Dimensions, where it's like a multiverse one, where you play as 4 different versions of Spider-Man, including Spider-Man Noir. I'd be really keen for that, maybe a playthrough of that. But, I digress. We're going to dive into a tier list. Now, these are all the as-of released Spider-Man films plus Venom. The Venom trilogy. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't mind including that. I haven't seen Craven. I haven't seen Morbius, nor do I particularly intend to. I definitely haven't seen Madam Web. So I'll include Venom just because Venom, why not? I've seen 2 of them. So I will put any in here that I haven't seen. And so I'll put the final Venom film till Death Do Us Part or something it's called. Till Death Do They Part. I don't mind that. I haven't seen it, so it's going and didn't watch it. And otherwise we'll do it. Let's do it in less obvious order. So let's start from the beginning. All right, so yeah, Till Death Do Us Part, I haven't watched it, so I'm just chucking it down in that bottom one. Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I recently rewatched Batman, 1989 Batman, and realized just sort of how it is kind of the first modern superhero movie. It's the first one to embrace all of its sort of camp origins and its comic book origins, but bring a grounded reality to it, whilst making this high action explosion of a film, making such an exciting blockbuster out of it while juggling those elements. I feel like Batman 1989 is the first one of these superhero movies that does that is able to tightrope walk that trajectory. And I feel like Spider-Man 2000 owes a lot to Batman 89. There's a lot of things I love about the Raimi films. Looking back on them, they are very dated. There's something about the way they look, the way they're paced, the way they feel and the sort of the way they're scripted that feels a little pedestrian. Looking back on it now, similar films around that time, like I'm thinking of like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, they've got similar vibes to them where everything's just a little sort of slow and there is a sense of humor to them. That being said, like the 3 Sam Raimi films, like I rewatched them I think last year, really good. They're really good. Like the third one has plenty of problems, but we'll get to that. But yeah, Spider-Man 1, I'm going to put very confidently an A. It is such a good start. It is so... the way it develops its characters, the way it tells the story, the performances are all fantastic. It's a pretty good script. What an amazing bad guy. I mean, Willem Dafoe's performance as the Green Goblin is one of the all-time greats. But you can sort of see, might even be a good podcast episode, is Batman 89 versus Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, to see just how they're similar. In terms of the story of how a hero is born, it's really amazingly done and such a good watch and such a great incarnation of Peter Parker and Spidey. Tobey's fantastic. And yeah, I love the first Spider-Man. Things I don't like about it, yeah, it's a little campy in sort of the places where I don't like it. It's like, you know, the guy who kills Uncle Ben has these ridiculous frosted tips and there's this sort of overacty sort of dialogue. But then those sequences come straight after this amazing, the Bruce Campbell, you know, fight scene. In the ring match, and like I think that sequence is great, and actually I like it a lot more now as an adult than I did as a kid. Like there's plenty of things to love about it. It does take a little while to get going. I will say we do spend a lot of time on Peter being a nerd, which is great. Like it's good to sort of build that as a foundation, then slowly he becomes more and more of a hero. But gee, Spidey takes like an hour to properly swing on, and it's like I'm not saying that faster is better, but you know, if I was nitpicking, I'd say it could use a bit of trimming. But no, Spider-Man's great. It's such a good watch still. It does hold up. Special effects are amazing. And the one thing I really like about the Raimi films in particular that they haven't quite gotten right since, or the thing is they haven't quite focused on since, is how New York is a character. You very much know how the city is feeling throughout each of the films, you know, specifically like their relationship to Spidey, you know, and that's told through a few different ways. That's told through some montages, you know, some of the newspaper headlines, but you really know how the city, and also like a bunch of extra stuff like, you take on one of us, you take on all of us, that guy on the bridge at the end of the movie, like you really, like with a lot of like featured extras, you really get a sense of how the city feels about Spider-Man, and it becomes a character, and I love that, and I feel that's so true to Spidey. You know, just to talk about, like, I grew up on Spidey. I watched the Raimi films. I played a lot of the games. I read a lot of the comics. In terms of the cast, like, Kirsten Dunst is fantastic. Now, I'll pull up some facts as well. Spider-Man was the first film to gross $100 million in its opening weekend alone at the domestic box office. And at the time, no movie had done so, even when adjusted for inflation. Willem Dafoe performed 90% of his own stunts. It is the first Marvel movie to showcase the flipping pages Marvel logo, which is very nice. And I will also talk about all the cameos in all the Spider-Man films as well. So Stan Lee
Exceslior
is in the scene where the Green Goblin attacks the balcony at the World Unity Festival. I think he's on the ground and he pulls like a kid out of the way. Bruce Campbell is also in it, and he gives Peter the name The Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, and Danny Elfman did the score. I'm sorry. That's the other thing. Maybe part of that is why I'm drawing the Batman link, is because the score is done by the same person. Very different scores, but, you know, as a hero theme, Spider-Man is... Yeah, it's a bit more grounded than the Batman one. Also, I think this is where the suit looks the best. I know there's a large... this film came out in 2002, and there's a large discourse over Spidey suits and which suit looks crap and which suit looks better. I think this one's like perfect. It's pretty similar in Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. I think the logo goes through some little adjustments, but I love it. I love the Spider-Man suits. So yeah, I feel confidently that Spider-Man 1, 2002 goes into the top of A. It's bordering on an S. We'll see what else falls into the list because I don't think we're going to need all of these categories. In fact, I am going to get rid of E and F for audio listeners. So what I've got so far, just to keep track, we have 5 ranks. We have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier, and a didn't watch it category, which is where Venom till death do they part sits, and Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, 2002 with Tobey Maguire, is sitting now in A. Spider-Man 2. Let's see if there's any fun little trivia for Spider-Man 2. Oh, how interesting. So I mentioned that there was subtle differences between the suits, the Spider-Man suit from the first one and the second one. Costume designer James Atchison made subtle changes to Spider-Man's costume from the previous film. The colors were made richer and bolder. That's true, that like they're more saturated. Like the blue is much brighter and the red is much brighter. The spider emblem was given more elegant lines. The muscle suit underneath was made into pieces to give a better sense of movement and not just like one big suit. And the helmet Tobey Maguire wore under his mask was also improved, adding a false jaw for better movement and magnetic eyepieces, which were easier to move. And they're very much commonplace now in all the Spidey suits that they use. Alfred Molina lost some weight for the role of Dr. Octopus, considering he had to gain some for the part of Diego Rivera in Frida in 2002. He said he wanted Doc Ock to have the build of a 1950s weightlifter. And for the sequence where Aunt May is taken hostage and later aids Spider-Man when at the bank and Doc Ock's climbing up the building, Rosemary Harris, who plays Aunt May in all 3 films, performs the action scenes herself, which is quite interesting. Let me look up when the Stan Lee cameo was.
Exceslior.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the wrong. So in the first one, he's on the ground during the big parade, and the second one, he pulls somebody out from debris in a New York street during the Doc Ock and Spider-Man chase up the building, up the bank. It's Spider-Man 2. What can we say about it that isn't? I think everything from the first film is improved. There's greater drama. He goes through this whole Superman 2 crisis of faith in sort of himself and his path and loses his powers. But really sort of is paced so nicely and woven through so nicely throughout the film. And to think they came from, Willem Dafoe and then just upped it with Alfred Molina. Willem Dafoe was fantastic in portraying this Joker sort of character, this split personality. And the one to begin with was actually, Norman was portrayed to be like a fairly nice guy, really. And so it is tragic, sort of his own hubris, and he was sort of forced into becoming the Green Goblin. It makes him a bit more tragic, but Doc Ock is truly tragic. He's somebody who does, again, have this sort of split personality, which is something they explore in the Raimi films to have a comparison to Peter having this split personality of Peter and Spidey. And Alfred Molina is is less intensely psychotic and much a little campier in a way, but there's something very charismatic about his performance that really works. And using puppets for the arms, like they look so good still, and this film just looks amazing. And he is a tragic figure. I mean, his wife dies, he loses everything. His dreams are pulled out from under him, and he's attached to these, in this sort of Frankenstein's monster kind of way, attached to these arms. The way it's portrayed is really cool and really scary. And I feel like that this is what this film does. It ups the drama, it ups the scares, it ups the thrills. And I really like sort of where they take each journey. There's Peter, there's Mary Jane, there's this whole thing. I feel this is the one James Franco is the best in as Harry. Honestly, James Franco, aside from allegations and everything else, I found him really good in The Disaster Artist. That is the only performance I've ever found him particularly engaging in. He just seems like he's bored most of the time in every other film I've seen him in. But this film, like, he does like a pretty okay job, and because he's got a lot more to do. So Harry, throughout this whole film, because Norman dies at the end of the first one, is like, oh, Spider-Man killed my dad. And so every arc is really interesting and satisfying and really cool. And like, it's just an amazing film. And it's amazing. It's one of the best superhero films ever made. And I feel just everyone is firing on all cylinders. And this is such a creative high. It goes in S very easily. I love Spider-Man 2. Who doesn't? Spider-Man 2 is great. And now we go to Spider-Man 3. Now, this was a real dip in the franchise. And it is a hot mess. I will say Spider-Man 3 is a hot mess. Obviously, it's riding this huge high from Spider-Man 2, both creatively and financially. There's a few issues with it. So there was a bit of studio involvement. There was a bit of, which meant that the film suffers because of it. As I said, sort of at the top of this, you're only as good as your bad guys. Everything feels sort of forced in this. So the main antagonist of the film becomes the symbiote. And that sort of isn't really explored. Which I will say, if anything, it gives the Venom films a bit more credibility because of how the symbiote is characterized, because it's more faithful to the comics and it's also more dramatically interesting. The symbiote is just portrayed as like an alien sludge, and there's some very cool evil visual effects that go along with that, but it's sort of portrayed as just a monster rather than as sentient intelligence. And I feel that honestly is a huge mistake. There's a few things that just don't work about it. So Sandman works with Thomas Hayden Church. The whole, there was a secret guy there during Uncle Ben's murder in the first film. Although the recreations of elements from the first film are flawless and they're quite cool to see, it's just a bit like, oh, who cares? Haven't we dealt with this already? Like, why don't we do something, why don't we focus on something different? Like, why doesn't Aunt May get offed? Like, as much as I love Aunt May and Rosemary Harris's performance, but doing this whole, we were wrong about Uncle Ben's murder, Sandman was there, is a bit like, come on, like, really? Because that is Batman 1989. I don't know. It just feels a bit forced. So there's the Sandman stuff, which is all pretty cool, actually, and there's a nice arc there, and he's great. Thomas Hayden Church is fantastic as Sandman. The other bad guys on a Bro Goblin, really silly. I get it. It's made in the mid-2000s, but the James Franco Goblin sucks. I'm sorry. His stupid snowboard. Like, give him a glider. Like, make him, I don't know what, I'm sure it was a studio thing, or maybe it was just like, we need to make it really cool and edgy, but he looks really lame. And because it's James Franco phoning in half a performance, it is really lame. If they'd made him, like, if he was using all the old art, also, it doesn't really make sense. He's just trying to hunt down Spider-Man and so wants to kill him, even though it's Peter. Like, dramatically, their relationship was, destroyed at the end of Spider-Man 2. But the fact that there's no real dramatic tension, it's just, I want to kill you now. And not like, it's nothing interesting dramatically between the two of them. Also, he wants to propose to Mary Jane, but then there's all of the sort of tension and all the arcs are explored in this film, but it all are these points of forced tension, which are pretty annoying actually to watch. So the whole James Franco and Peter thing is because they can't communicate. Harry's just really angry at Peter, but they're not actually talking about it. So that's why all of that crap happens. There's the whole symbiote gets attached to Peter and then he just becomes an asshole, and that's all to do with the comics. But I don't know, none of it feels grounded. And I feel we've lost all of the magic and all of the drama that was in the last one and in the first one as well. And Mary Jane's just there, not loving life because she's trying to be an actress now. Oh, no, she was always trying to be and just not loving life, and her relationship with Peter's rocky, and because he has to be Spider-Man, even though they resolved that at the end of the last one. I don't know. And then Eddie, I don't know. I don't particularly like the performance. I don't see Eddie Brock in that film. He's not dangerous at all or threatening. He's just sort of a dick, and that's fine. But it's just, I don't know. There's so many missed opportunities, I feel like, and so many things that they spent so much time on. And look, as a production, it looks amazing. It's the best looking one out of the three of them, easily. It's just messy. Look, Harry dies at the end of it, and I was like, okay, so this has got some stakes. I just feel like it's all a bit over the place, which is a shame. But it's got a lot of good things happening with it. So I'm going to pop it in B. It's going in B for now. It has its moments, but it's interesting. Bryce Dallas Howard performed her own stunts during the crane accident scene, unaware that she was pregnant at time of filming. That is a great fact. According to James Franco, they had to go back and do some reshoots just prior to the release because test audiences felt there was not enough action in the film. Yeah, there's not enough action in it. I agree. I agree with that, James. Sam Raimi was deeply unhappy with how the film turned out. So I read that Sandman was the villain for the film, and all of the Harry stuff was sort of going on underneath, and it was those two elements. But the studio were desperate for Venom. So that's why it is sort of this hodgepodge of ideas. And he hoped that the planned fourth film would have made up for it pretty well. Oh yeah, Stan Lee's in it. He's got a scene. I don't think it's his first line of dialogue, but he gets a scene with Peter where he says, "Oh, Spider-Man's great. Excelsior."
Excelsior.
Yeah, I don't know. And Bruce Campbell, they have this extended scene with Bruce Campbell. He's like this maitre d' at this restaurant. Bruce Campbell's great. It is this long sequence though, and I feel like there are elements that are so self-indulgent with it. It's just like, it just feels like half the time it's like, what are we doing? Is this a Spider-Man movie? Or like, I just feel it's so sort of lost as a production. And so, yeah, they were going to make a fourth film with Tobey Maguire, and it was going to be with the Vulture. And I think Ben Kingsley had signed on, or like they're in the talks with Ben Kingsley to play the Vulture. And it would have made up for Spider-Man 3 is what sort of they were saying. But I think either Sam Raimi pulled out or things sort of just dissolved, but the studio were desperate to release a Spider-Man film, which is why The Amazing Spider-Man happened. And exit Tobey and enter Andrew Garfield for The Amazing Spider-Man. There's a lot to love about it. I really like The Amazing Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield is fantastic and delivers just a tour de force performance as both Peter and Spidey. It isn't different enough from the first Spider-Man film. It's shot more differently. It has a grittier look. I really like his homemade costume. I've always liked the Amazing Spider-Man 1 costume. I like the fact that there are the lenses are sunglasses. I think there's really cool things about it. I get why they moved to a more comic book direction for the second one. But look, I really like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 outfit. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I know it's a hot take, but I think it's great. So sue me. Also, Emma Stone as Gwen. We've got Risa Farnes as the Lizard, as Dr. Connors. And yeah, it's a good cast. It's a pretty decent film. It's pretty fun to watch. It's got humor to it. Oh, sorry, Martin Sheen and Sally Fields as Uncle Ben and Aunt May. It just feels like we're doing the same thing again. And they've tried to add in a couple of layers of mystery, like, oh, what happened with Peter's parents? What's the deal? So it tries to have its own identity. But the whole thing is that they didn't need to reboot it, but they were sort of had to by the studio. So the whole thing's a bit silly. During his breaks, Andrew Garfield went around New York playing basketball with kids in his Spider-Man outfit. Andrew Garfield was a huge fan of Spider-Man, which was pretty obvious. That they began dating. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone began dating during filming. Andrew Garfield also did yoga and Pilates. Also, this film was when they reintroduced web shooters rather than organic webbing. And apparently, the director, Mark Webb, explained that the web shooters were a creative decision to showcase Peter's intellect. We wanted to emphasize that these are things that Peter Parker made and that he is special himself, even if he feels like an outsider. Look, I get the idea of organic webbing, and considering the trailer for Brand New Day, it looks like organic webbing is very much making a comeback, which is interesting. Stanley is about the 90-minute mark, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie. It's when Spidey and the Lizard are having this big bash up in the school library, and they're in the background out of focus, and Stanley's in the front just mopping with headphones on. Really cool.
Excelsior!
Yeah, look, Amazing Spider-Man has a lot to like about it. I quite enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm going to put it above Spider-Man 3 in B. I think it's a good effort. I think it's a lot of its issues are it's just rehashing stuff we've already seen. It's the Uncle Ben thing, and it's, yeah, I don't know. Okay, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is going in D. It is going right at the bottom of D. It is pretty humorless. It's a bit dull. There's some amazing things about it. I mean, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are fantastic. Emma Stone has nothing to do in this film. She's given nothing apart from the fact that she dies. Spoiler alert. Andrew Garfield is just fantastic. And I feel this is his best performance as Peter. And he's so good. He's so good in this. And it is worth it just for him and just for how good he is. But as a production, it just feels like it's a mess. It's not focused. We've got Jamie Foxx's Electro, who's fine. I feel like they've tried to modernize him, and they've tried to make him really sort of cool and everything. I don't know. I just have never really bought it. It's just not a very good watch. And then you've got this whole Harry thing, this new Harry with that guy from Chronicle, and he's just sort of doing the Joker, and then he becomes the Goblin. Oh, it's just a mess. It just is messy, messy, messy. There's some okay sequences in it, like the whole lightning in Times Square. That intro swing in is fantastic. The theme is really cool. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 theme. And everyone loves his suit, of course. I think the best thing about this is Andrew Garfield, but even he can't really save it, unfortunately. Homecoming. I love Homecoming. Now, a lot of people's issues with the MCU Spider-Man is the fact that he's connected to the MCU, is the fact that he is part of this bigger story, and he's weighed down by the fact that, especially in these films, he's weighed down by Tony and weighed down by Iron Man and the Avengers and, the larger story that was being told in the Infinity Saga. That being said, I feel Homecoming is really fresh. It's not telling an origin story. It is a coming-of-age film, certainly, but focuses much more on Peter as a high school student. It's really funny. I really like the Stark suit, the first one, the red and the blue. There's some amazing sequences in it. And bad guys. Michael Keaton is the Vulture. He's one of the best. He's fantastic. And I couldn't see him definitely going toe-to-toe with Toby or Andrew, he's just a fantastic bad guy. It's sort of a shame he didn't get his time in No Way Home, but obviously that is a pretty stacked film, so that's okay. I'm sure they'll bring him back in some respect. Also, I love Tom Holland. Tom Holland's fantastic, and there's some really cool moments in it. There's some lovely bits of storytelling in terms of Iron Man. So when Tony takes the suit off him and says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it. Some lovely full circle moments for people who have sat through the MCU, but I feel it stands up by itself. The fact that it's connected to this larger world is cool. And the fact that sort of by itself, zooming in, it feels like a John Hughes movie with Spider-Man in it. And I think it's great. I love Homecoming. It's a great watch. It's great to rewatch. I'm going to chuck it in A, and I'm sorry, I'm going to put Homecoming ahead of Spider-Man 2002. I'm sorry, everyone. Spider-Man 2 is still very much at the top, and then we've got we'll do a little recap now of where we're sitting. So in didn't watch it, we've got Till Death Do They Part, Venom 3, then The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then in B we've got Spider-Man 3, followed by The Amazing Spider-Man, and then in A we've got Spider-Man from 2002, and then A is Homecoming, and then S tier is Spider-Man 2. Did you catch all that? How many times did I say the word Spider-Man? Far From Home. Far From Home's good. Again, look, I feel it feels like a worthy sequel to Homecoming. I feel it lacks sort of the charm and the humor that Homecoming really, really had. And but I feel like everyone is still on top form. I feel the effects are amazing, and I feel Mysterio is fantastic. I was desperate. Mysterio is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I was desperate to see him in a film, and to finally sort of get him, and for the way they did it all was just fantastic. And Jake Gyllenhaal is great, and it's a great movie. I really like Far From Home, and I'm going to put it in A. And actually no, I'm going to put it at the very top of B. So that's ahead of The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3, but below the first Spider-Man. If I was going to rewatch a Spider-Man film, maybe this is my criteria. If I was going to rewatch a Spider-Man film, yeah, I would put the first Spider-Man above Far From Home. No Way Home. Now, No Way Home is a bit mixed as a movie. It's too long. That being said, it is one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. It was such a fun film to see in cinemas, and I'm so glad I wasn't spoiled ahead of it. You know, to see, Andrew, Toby, and Tom go toe-to-toe with these bad guys. And the fact that Willem Dafoe turned out to be the big bad, and really it was a coming-of-age story for Peter. This was him dealing with the post-Endgame stuff, but also like figuring out his whole place in the world. And, he goes through sacrifices. And look, there's some really cool moments in it. I think as an ensemble cast, this is a massive ensemble cast. You forget that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange is a large part of this movie. But in terms of the bad guys, you've got the best of the Rogues Gallery returning, other than Michael Keaton as Vulture. I mean, you've got Willem Dafoe as the Goblin, as Harry Osborn. You've got Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. You've got Jamie Foxx as Electro. You've got Rhys Ifans. You've got Thomas Hayden Church coming back as the Lizard and Sandman as well. And then you've got the three Spideys, and it's a great cinematic and a great celebration, a great sort of anniversary celebration of the Spider-Man films. And so lovely to see them all together, and just sort of what an achievement that they were able to get it all together. It isn't like a perfect movie, and nobody's going to say that, but I love it. I love it so much. It's just fantastic. So it's going in A, and I'll put it underneath Spider-Man 1. We're getting pretty close to the end, guys. This is going pretty well. So that's all the main live action ones. I'll chuck in Venom. So there's Venom, and then there's Let There Be Carnage. Now, there's a lot to love in Venom. They're pretty generic monster movies. I'm going to visually Venom 1 and Venom 2 is more visually interesting, I feel like, than the first one, but the first one has better character stuff. I'm going to put them both in C, and I'll put Venom 1 above Venom 2. I enjoyed them. I didn't sort of enjoy Act 3 of the first Venom, and the second Venom was fine. I wasn't particularly offended by it. They didn't blow me away or anything. I love Venom as a character, but I feel he's most interesting in his interactions with Spider-Man, which is something that I'm sure we will see with Tom Holland, is the symbiote done again. Obviously, with the Spider-Man PlayStation games, the second Spider-Man 2 is PS5, sorry, Spider-Man 2 is, Venom. Is the big Venom stuff and the symbiote stuff. So I think it'll be a little bit of time before we see it in live action, but, I'd like to see what they do with Venom. We're nearly at the end. That's all the live action ones, but we've also got Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse, I'm putting very comfortably in S tier, just below Spider-Man 2. Into the Spider-Verse is such a bold, creative leap into animation. It's easily one of the best Spider-Man films ever made. It's a great movie. It's just a fantastic movie. It's one of the best animated films I've ever seen, and I love it. I love it, and can't wait for the third one. I will say Across the Spider-Verse has a lot of great things about it, and there's lots of interest, and there's great plot turns, and it's a great part 2 of a trilogy. But without part 3, it's sort of hard to review it in isolation because it very much ends on a huge sort of cliffhanger, and it's like, well, it depends where the story ends up to feel how earned this part is. It's fantastic by itself, but I feel like it's sort of hard talking about it. It goes very much in A, I feel like, and I'm going to put it underneath No Way Home. This has basically turned into how the rewatchability and what I would choose to put on if somebody was like, hey, do you want to watch a Spider-Man film? No, I'm like, great, what am I going to watch? But that's Spider-Man. That's Spider-Man. That's the saga's wrap. So let me go through the ranking. We have, didn't watch it, Till Death Do They Part, Venom 3. Then in D tier, we've got The Amazing Spider-Man Pooh. Sorry, I mean The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then in C, we've got Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. And then Venom. B tier, we have Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Then in A tier, we've got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man 2002, Spider-Man Homecoming. And then in S tier, we've got Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2. So I hope you were able to keep track with all of the times I said Spider-Man and the number 2, folks, to work out what's what. I'm sure I'll post this somewhere. But that's my tier ranking for it. I want to thank everyone who's joined me for this. I'm going to do some more Spider-Man stuff. I probably won't review the new movie. I want to save that. But I'll probably look at some retro games. Some old Spider-Man games. I've been sort of getting an itch to try them out. Maybe the old, like PlayStation 1, give that a proper assessment. Maybe some of the movie tie-in games like the Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. And also I want to do a Lego build of the Daily Bugle as a podcast episode. So we'll get someone. I've got a couple of people in mind for that, but we might do that a bit later. But thank you all for joining me, and I hope you all have a fantastic week. See you later, everyone. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that I've had on my soundboard since I started the podcast this Spider-Man THWIP sound effect that I've not even used once. So there we have it. Bye.
Excelsior!